Fin the Week is brought to you by Indulge, a digital agency built on thinking for the global financial services industry.
Hey there and welcome to our brand new podcast. I'm Amelia.
I'm Paul.
Pat. I'm Russell.
And this is Fin the Week. Everyone, welcome. How are we doing?
All good, thank you. Yeah, pretty excited.
Yeah,
same. Super excited to actually be launching our own podcast.
Yeah, it isn't something I thought we'd be doing, but I'm up for giving it a go and see what happens for sure.
And, you know, it is episode 1. And I guess we should probably start by explaining what we're doing here. Paul, this was kind of your idea, right? So should we start with you?
Yeah, I mean, so this is an idea we've been kicking around for quite a long time, actually. I mean, I can remember a couple of years ago that the three of us sat down and spoke about, we're always discussing stuff in our industry. We're quite thoughtful people, I think. I mean, others can make their own judgments, but we've always got something to say about what we do. And we said how cool it would be to just sit down on a weekly basis and record these sorts of discussions. But it was, you know, we never really got round to doing it. So now feels like the right time. And it kind of coincides with, we've been thinking a lot about our brand as a company. We're doing a bit of a relaunch in a way. We've rebranded. We're expanding what we do as a company. We've got a real sharp focus on the industry that we work in. And so launching this sort of thing feels like a great way to share what we do and actually just exercise our own muscles in a way of what we think about the work we do, how we think about it, all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's where the idea came from.
And who do you kind of envisage this show being for? Who's going to be listening?
So our kind of focus as a company is on working with firms in the financial services sector, where our background is that we started up in Guernsey in the Channel Islands, which is where Pat and Russell are both sitting. And so Guernsey is known for being a kind of finance hub of the world. So we naturally got exposed to that world, and then over the years we've focused in on that. So the work we do and the things that we tackle day in, day out are of interest to people in the financial services industry, particularly marketing teams and operations teams, because they're the people we work with every day, and they come to us with the challenges that they're facing. We learn a lot about what they do. We know a lot of stuff about the industry, but we also know how technology integrates with that part of the industry. We'll probably get into discussions about regulatory considerations, which is often seen as a bit of a pain to talk about, but actually is quite interesting. It gives you a really kind of rigid box to work within that makes you have to be creative in what you do.
And, you know, these are the people sort of working in that sector who'll be listening. When do you think these people will be listening? What do you kind of envisage when our listeners are listening to the podcast?
So I listen to a fair few podcasts myself, and I like to use them as almost a part of my weekly routine. Like I listen to, like I'm into guitars, for instance, and I listen to a guitar podcast that comes out every Friday lunchtime, just because it's a part of my weekly routine. So my ambition is that this will become a part of our listeners' weekly routine. It's not going to be dry or stuffy. We're hoping that it's just capturing the discussions that we have all the time and the kind of messy thinking that sometimes goes on. And so it becomes like a light-hearted part of the start of every Friday morning is when we're going to be launching each episode. So that's the plan, yeah.
So people can be having it on in the office whilst they're working on a Friday morning, kind of rounding off the week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And what we're thinking, will we be covering stuff that's kind of topical or more of those core concepts?
So I think, and the other guys can probably have their own view, but I think a bit of both, to be honest. We've something else I should mention is that with the launch of our new website, we're taking a very sort of publication first approach. So the website will launch a new edition every quarter. So each quarter there will be an edition. We'll get into the theme of this quarter's edition shortly, but the idea will be that we'll we'll have a kind of pre-planned program of things to discuss, but because our industry is a bit of a cliche, but it's constantly evolving, it's constantly changing, particularly at the moment with AI, which is what we'll be talking about today. And so I dare say we'll have to sort of program in, you know, emergency episodes when something big happens, because it does happen. I mean, I know, Pat, you're at the sharp end of AI in the development world at the moment, and that's just, the pace of change there is insane, isn't it?
We could do a daily emergency podcast at the moment. That's what's going on.
So
Yeah,
Pat's
an
going to be in
emergency
charge
is
of
probably
the
the word.
breaking news.
Yes.
Just put on a permanent live feed.
Strap
8
a
till 6
GoPro to your
p.m.
head.
So that is
Yeah.
kind of what it's all going to be about in a nutshell. And I'm sure, as we go through over the coming weeks and months, it might evolve, but that's kind of the concept. And usually this part of the show will be about tackling the big talking points of the week. But this week, why don't we talk about the theme of that first edition that you mentioned, Paul, which is pragmatic AI. At the risk of triggering those sick of hearing about AI, why pragmatic AI, and what do you mean by that term?
Yeah, so when I was mapping out the program for the first few quarters, it felt obvious that we had to talk about AI, because it's just so critical to, I mean, everybody is talking about it in one way or another, certainly from what I can see. But it also struck me that with anything like this that grows so quickly and so big, there's a lot of hype and a lot of stuff that isn't necessarily true, or a lot of people worrying about things that aren't necessarily worth worrying about. But I also think that because the work we do is heavily impacted by AI, and we're all just genuinely interested in it, that it's easy to forget that there are people in the real world who, actually just dabble with it or don't really know that much about it at all. Something that made me chuckle the other day actually was that Pat and I took part in a webinar a couple of weeks ago talking about AI and its impact on the communications industry. And my wife happened to join and watch it. So I jokingly said later on that day, like, "Oh, what was your main takeaway from the webinar?" And her response was, "I still don't know what an LLM is." And she was embarrassed because I laughed about that. But actually, it was a good reminder that, normal people don't really know anything about this, then they don't necessarily care all that much until something lands in front of them that is really obviously helpful. So coming back to the question, pragmatic AI, what we found is that behind all of the hype, there is some genuinely really useful stuff you can do, which sounds a stupid thing to say, but even in the last couple of months, the amount of change it's had on production. I mean, Pat, you mentioned a little while ago something that kind of was a light bulb moment for me, which was that AI in development isn't about creating sort of your own AI chatbots or anything, which is what a lot of people have focused on to this point. It's actually just changing the way traditional software development happens, and it's democratizing it, basically. It's making it so much easier. And I mean, Pat, you can probably expand on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll start by just giving my view on sort of pragmatic AI. I think it's quite easy to fall into one of two camps with AI. There's the sort of fear camp and there's the hype camp. The fear camp is, I'm worried about data protection, I'm worried about bias, I'm worried about hallucinations and inaccuracies. So I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to let it into our business. And we're just going to be super cautious. And the hype camp is, it's going to 10x everyone's productivity and everyone's going to lose their jobs, or, we're going to be able to triple our sales overnight. And neither of those extremes are correct, really. Pragmatic AI is sort of trying to straddle both of those and find a sort of happy medium in the middle, where actually you're using AI securely and in a useful way that's improving your business, without causing lots of fear, whilst also improving your productivity, but probably not 10xing it just yet. On the development side, your point, Paul, what I've been talking about there is the fact that I've kind of had this realization over the last couple of months that the biggest change that's going to come from AI, at least in the next year or two, is not through AI agents replacing people and AI automations automating huge swathes of the economy. It's going to be from developers using AI to build much better software. And what that means is that software will work more smoothly. It will integrate better. You'll have interfaces that become much easier to use, that are more accessible. And so I think over the next couple of years, we'll suddenly see, the world is full of technology, but most of it doesn't work very well. If you've ever tried to kind of get Echo or Amazon Alexa to do something beyond setting a timer, it generally fails. Siri is not that useful at all. Gemini's a bit further along, but we'll see things like that just move much, much more quickly, because as a developer using these AI tools, you can get so much more done to such a high level of quality in much less time. So yeah, we'll see just the general progress of software and technology start to accelerate massively, and off the back of that acceleration will come more powerful AI tools, and AI will become more integrated into our day-to-day lives. But so yeah, that's sort of what's happening on the development front for sure.
I think
Yes,
that's quite
I was good.
interesting. Sorry, I was going to say, I think it's quite interesting what you were saying about this kind of like fear hype thing, because Paul, I'm probably, like your wife, I don't really use AI in my day-to-day work. I use ChatGPT occasionally, but not really. And for me, most of the conversations that I see around it are very much around risk, danger, ethical issues. And do you think that, as obviously people who know a lot more about it, do you think that maybe it means that everyone's just completely missing the point because it's overshadowing the conversations about its real potential?
Yeah, I mean, there are data protection issues with using ChatGPT. You can't get around that. But honestly, if you have a conversation with ChatGPT about what you're going to have for dinner tonight, or you share some information about a symptom you're experiencing, and it comes back with some advice, that data isn't really going to be leaked anywhere. That's low risk stuff. If you're using ChatGPT to crunch through 1,000 CVs for a job application, and you're using it to filter out relevant applicants, that's a high risk area where bias is probably going to come into play. So it's about how you use it and what you use it for. If you're worried about bias, there's some very clear cut areas where you shouldn't be using large language models, but there are also loads of areas where you can use large language models without worrying about bias. For example, processing invoices or crunching numbers, writing code, that kind of stuff. If you're worried about data protection, there's ways you can use AI safely. You can run models within your own Azure cloud. You can use models on Amazon that are within the EU so that they're GDPR compliant. Technically, there's ways to kind of get over those data protection concerns. And the other common issue is hallucinations, and that large language models do hallucinate a lot. But again, you can really mitigate those risks by prompting well, using the right tools, and sort of structuring your data in a specific way in order to mitigate those risks and produce an output that's incredibly useful. So yeah, it really comes down to kind of how you roll it out and what you do with it, and the platforms that you use.
You
So
mentioned,
yeah, that's kind of addressing the fear side of it.
I was going to say, you mentioned hallucinations there. I'd be interested to know, is that a part of common, do people know what that means? Amelia, does that mean anything to you as a non-techie?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, I guess you mentioned hallucinations to people, and people think you're either on drugs or having an episode. But these days, like in the context of AI, hallucinations mean it's a term that is used to describe when a large language model like ChatGPT gives you confidently an answer that is completely incorrect. So an example of where hallucinations have caught people out in recent times have been where there's a famous story of a lawyer who was representing someone in court who got injured in a plane by one of the trolleys that was like rolling back and forth. And he asked ChatGPT to research into a series research into precedents for this case, so he could present some precedents to the court. ChatGPT supposedly researched into them and hallucinated a dozen cases, a dozen similar cases and similar outcomes, which he then put straight into his court documents. But they were all made up. The ChatGPT just made them up out of nowhere and confidently said these are real. And he got in a lot of trouble, and it's happened a couple of times since then as well, with lawyers asking ChatGPT to do research, and it's hallucinated precedents. And it does get things wrong quite a lot, but there's areas where it will get things wrong, and there's areas where it won't get things wrong. So if you give it a long document and ask it to summarize that document, it will rarely make things up about that document because all the information is there. You're not asking it to plug gaps, if you like. And so it will generally get that summarization really, correct, and it will talk about the document in an accurate way. If you ask it to research into a load of precedents without actually going into depth, then it might make them up. But if you flick on a deep research mode, which is a mode available in most kind of online chat tools, it will go away and it will research the internet, and it will take 5 to 10 minutes, and it will think a lot more deeply about it, and it will critique itself and review all of its citations. And actually, if you flick on deep research mode, then it will generally be completely accurate, and it will also give you references and citations that you can follow up on and check. So, there's ways around the hallucinations, so you definitely shouldn't be concerned about that. Instead, you should be researching into how you can address them and understanding when they happen and what can trigger them.
So just like with any tool, you've just got to know how to use it properly, basically.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And I like to use the phrase, don't caution yourself out of existence, in the context of Guernsey's, in the finance industry here in particular. They're very risk averse. There's a lot of compliance rules and regulations they need to adhere to. And as a result, they're very cautious about rolling out new technology in case it results in them falling foul of compliance regulations. But honestly, right now, there's a few firms in Guernsey that just have a blanket ban on AI. That's definitely the wrong move, because they're going to fall behind due to an abundance of caution. And fundamentally, they might not be able to catch up if they fall too far behind, because the world is just moving so quickly. So yeah, I say to people, don't caution yourself out of existence. Experiment and be pragmatic about it.
And I feel like let's get a little bit more specific. So have we got any real examples of where AI is actually changing things currently?
I was going to say we've done a lot of prototyping recently. So Russ, you've been involved in a number of things. You've built your own concept for an app, and it's possible to prototype now, isn't it? In ways that just wouldn't be possible even maybe 6 months ago.
Yeah, I think it's in that respect, it's a really exciting time for people who have an idea for an app. I think in the past, in fact, the app that I produced a prototype of, I think it was sitting in a business plan for probably 6 or 7 years. And then within a week, using Figma Make, I had a working app which kind of basically tested all of the ideas that I had in this business plan. Probably built it in a few days. I produced a demo and put that online. You can see it on my LinkedIn. Shameless LinkedIn plug there. But I think in the past, it probably would have sat in that business plan perhaps for, another few years until I, convinced myself to spend 6 months, writing the front end code, or persuaded a developer to kind of come on board and create an initial prototype. I think what AI allowed me to do is essentially go into the design software that I'm already using, take my design concepts and bring them to life almost instantly. I think across about 200 or so prompts, I produced a prototype which had like a landing page. It had system settings. It had all of the elements which allowed me to now, which allows me to now demo it to a potential customer. but kind of visualize that business plan almost instantly to kind of see if it works. And if it works or not, you know, I think it was still a great exercise. Not only to see how quickly you can use AI to kind of put together a prototype, but also to fail quickly if it does fail. And I think that's what we're going to see more now. We're going to see entrepreneurs kind of failing faster, building these prototypes and understanding if their concepts work, you know, more than ever before. And hopefully as a result, alongside all of the kind of, I don't really like the phrase AI slop, which is appearing, I think we'll probably find that those good ideas are conceived faster just due to the rapid pace that AI gives us in producing prototypes.
Can I ask, Russ, that how much time would that have saved you? So, you know, if we go back, you know, you said, Paul, like, you know, 6 months ago even, but, you know, if we went back a year or two, if you were to do something like that, how much time would that actually take you?
Well, I mean, front-end coding isn't my speciality, although I can do it. I mean, if I sat down and wrote that much code, I'd probably be doing it full time for like a few weeks. And I'd probably produce the whole concept using prompts in a couple of days.
Yeah. The barrier to entry is just so much lower. And I think I think that's a good thing, because it means that people are not afraid to try ideas they have. And like you say, Russ, if it fails quickly. Whereas a year ago, your concept was set in a business plan and realistically wouldn't have gotten built in any way, because no one would have had the guts to sort of back it and put the budget behind it for long enough, because you're just not sure. Whereas now we can all test this prototype. We've got some conversations lined up with people to show them, and we'll know quickly if it's a goer or not.
Yeah, and then when it comes to, if it is a goer, and when it comes to actually pushing the button on building it into a production grade application, then that whole process is going to be a lot easier too. You still need to be an experienced developer in order to take one of these sort of prototypes and build it into a robust, scalable application. But a developer armed with a powerful AI tool like Claude Code or Codex can really rapidly get something decent together in a fraction of the time. And what we're seeing on the development front is we're kind of, obviously we're saving a lot of time and building stuff much more quickly, but it's allowing us to spend more time on refining and polishing that end product. So we are seeing some time saving, or significant time saving, but we're using the time saved to really, really elevate the quality of the work we're doing. So we're producing software that's much more stable, that's got much more automated testing built into it. So there's less bugs. It's more accessible. It's more feature rich. We're able to build much more complex and sophisticated features than we would have done in the past. And I say to people that traditionally software development has always just been a journey of compromise, because it has been so time consuming in the past to build software, and you've always got a limit on time and a limit on budget. And so as a developer, I don't think I've ever been involved in a project where I've been completely happy with what we've produced. Because as a developer, I'd love to spend 3 weeks working on this specific feature and polishing it and making it perfect and completely bug-free. But in the real world, you've only got 2 days to build that feature. So you make it good enough to go into production. But often you have to say to the client, well, we can build this feature, but it's, might not be able to do this thing, or we might have to pause this thing until later, put it into phase 2. So there's this constant negotiation between how much time and effort we've got to do something and how much it would actually take to do it properly, or to do it to a very high level of quality. And what we're seeing now is, as a developer, a lot of those kind of boundaries are being removed. A lot of those roadblocks are being removed, so you can really go to town and build something that you can genuinely be really proud of in terms of the quality of that end result. And of course, that's allowing us to deliver a lot more value to our clients as well. Um, so actually, it's really helping our agency currently because um, we're able to do work on budget. We're able to do work to a much higher level of quality. There's way less difficult conversations with clients about compromise because the conversations now are more along the lines of the client asks if we can do something and we just say yes, no problem. More often than not, it's like, yeah, we can do it in the budget as well. We don't have to charge you extra for that. So everyone's happy. And it's just at the moment, at the current point in time, it's just a really great technology for everyone. But yeah, who knows what it's going to look like in 2, 3, 4 years?
I think
You just don't know.
one of the big fears is it's going to destroy jobs, isn't it? That it if you're able to do so much more with the same team, then are there going to be more jobs available? But I watched an interesting report from Sky News the other day, which was talking about how they referenced, I'm going to butcher the story, but they referenced when steam production machines were created, it made production so much more efficient that people involved in the coal industry were worried that demand for coal would just drop off a cliff because you just need less of it. But actually it went the other way, and it rose exponentially because people wanted more of a good thing. So they wanted to use these machines to do more. And actually they looked into the data for the jobs market at the moment, and demand for developers, so the examples we've been talking about here, has actually gone up recently because, and I think people realize you can do more with those people, and so they want more of that. So it'll be interesting to see if it does go that way, because if the barrier to entry for creating new things is lower, then I guess people are just going to be going for it and creating everything they can. Companies are going to be creating their own software, where in the past they might have used a SaaS piece of software. So yeah, it could be really interesting. It might not be the disaster that everybody's predicting for the jobs market. I don't know.
And on that effect, I think there's this rise of people just going into tools like Lovable or Replit and just vibe coding their own product because they've got an idea, and they can just do that in an afternoon or over a few days. And then what happens is you've just all of these thousands and thousands of different products out there, and some of them, because they've been able to prototype them, some of them have found there is demand for those, and all of a sudden they need to take that vibe coded prototype and turn it into a robust production grade application, and then that's when they need a developer to come in. So there's this like emerging market of demand for developers who can take a prototype and actually turn it into a secure proper production grade app. So that's really interesting. And I think the SaaS world is definitely kind of ripe for massive disruption as well. You mentioned there, Paul, that we'll probably see firms building their own software, which is definitely true. And I think a lot of SaaS products out there that kind of help to organize knowledge, platforms like Salesforce, Sunday.com, Jira, that potentially can get quite expensive too. It's not going to be that hard. In fact, it's not that hard right now to build your own version of that software that's aligned with your own company's specific requirements. Be cheaper to run. It's much more lightweight. It's much more aligned with how your business works. It's not bloated. We're definitely going to see a rise in that trend. And so I think we'll see these huge multinational SaaS firms probably start to lose revenue and probably change their business model. And we'll probably see a rise in firms just building out their own bespoke software, like small firms. Like we've done it. We recently swapped out our ticketing system Zendesk for an open source platform that we extended significantly using AI technology to align with our requirements, and it saved us an absolute fortune. You're going to see that across a lot of businesses, I think, because it's now kind of from a budgetary perspective, it's feasible to build your own software in a robust way and actually save money over paying monthly fees to Salesforce or Zendesk or whatever.
It's a better experience as well, isn't it? Because some of the most woeful applications out there are those major tech platforms.
Yeah,
You know,
they're
we
definitely complacent. There's
yeah.
definitely complacency there. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I despise having to use Jira and things like that. It's just so difficult. And I'm sure there's someone out there it's perfect for, but
Yeah.
you know, having your own bespoke platform is just so much
Mm.
nicer.
It kind of opens the door for three things. It allows agencies like us to build a whole suite of proprietary software to run our agency because we have the capabilities to do it in house. It allows us to create apps which we can license to compete with those large SaaS products as well. And also just outside of the whole like SaaS market, it just allows us to create enterprise applications just at a much larger scale with a smaller team and reduce the cost of those. I think I heard someone talking the other day that like now is really the only time where a small agency of 10 people could, you know, potentially be, you know, billing £1 billion revenue because like, or be like worth £1 billion because the output now is so much greater than it was before that a team of 10 would just really struggle to like compete with these big agencies of, you know, of thousands of people. Whereas now we're in a position perhaps where we can. I think the only kind of risks I see is that like the landscape is going to change quite quickly over the next few years, and having a competitor edge in all of this will eventually fade and probably merge into one kind of you know, one kind of industry kind of standard way of running an agency in the next few years. So you have to keep on evolving and staying ahead. And I think right now, as an agency at Indulge, I think, you know, it feels like we're on the front foot there with you know, with you know what we're kind of experimenting with and what we're adopting into our processes.
I was chatting to someone literally before we came to record this session, and we were talking about AI inevitably, and they mentioned that it feels like the value that anyone can bring, certainly in the agency world, is judgment. It's like that's always been a part of the value is having good judgment, making good decisions, creating the right strategic direction. But then the other big part was the production and the kind of creating things. Increasingly, the production side, certainly the nitty-gritty part of it, is being handled by, or at least augmented by, AI. But the thing that hasn't changed, and I don't think will change certainly in the short term, is that judgment and that ability to look at a solution and say, does this fulfill the requirements? And as Pat was talking about, the polish and the kind of perfectionism element of our jobs is like it allows us to then do that better. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch how a lot of organizations sort of shift focus, I suppose, into that judgment area and looking at making decisions, but leaving the hard work, the coding, the creation to bots.
And also, I think the human skills are going to be more valued, and I think you only really gain those human skills by well, at an agency. I think some people just naturally have them, but I think ultimately people want to work with us and want to work with agencies as well as the services that they provide, but just because they have a good relationship with people who are providing those services. So that kind of growing relationship and understanding our clients, being on that longer journey with them to improve their business is something that AI won't replace, because we will still be accountable for the results which AI gives, you know, them. If we're speeding up a production, someone's always accountable for what AI produces along the line. And ultimately it's the people producing it. So, you know, I think it doesn't take that away. If something isn't working, you can't say, oh, you know, I'll just ask the AI, or let's have a look what the AI's done and try and figure it out from there. I think you need to, you as a producer using AI, you're always going to be directing AI as a production tool to deliver what you intended it to. And I think that's really important, because if you allow AI to kind of make up the interface or build the app in its own way, then how can you defend that and become accountable for that if you're having a conversation with the client? So I think that's really important when you're using this technology. And that comes back to, humans being responsible for the strategy, being responsible for, testing and validating, like we were talking about. And that's going to be the key element, I think, in rolling this out successfully.
Yeah, definitely. I think in the context of an agency, this applies to everyone, but you should use AI to address your weaknesses and not replace your strengths. And the strength of an agency is its people, and the fact that an agency has a team of experts who can achieve a much better end result in a particular project than the client trying to do that project on their own. And an agency using AI with people driving that AI and using that human judgment to produce an incredible end result will always produce a better result than the client attempting to do the same thing using AI. So the value proposition of an agency is that the people in the agency can produce a better result than the client can produce. There's an argument to say that if the client starts using AI, it can close that gap to what the agency can use. But if the agency is also using AI, you're maintaining that value proposition. And that will remain. I genuinely think that people will continue hiring agencies because the client will have more faith in the agency delivering a successful result using AI than themselves delivering a successful result using AI. And like you say, Russ, as an agency owner or a production person in an agency, you definitely shouldn't have AI doing everything, because then you lose that value proposition. You should have AI sort of crunch code and kind of close the gaps on certain parts of the project, but your human judgment and your professional experience is really where the value is. And so you need to retain that, because that's what is going to make your product stand out and really solve the challenges that the client has engaged you to solve.
I think that's maybe a good place to leave it for now. But I know we're going to be exploring a lot more about AI in the coming episodes, so kind of plenty to sink our teeth into. So now I'm looking forward to this. This is a feature we're going to be doing every week. It's called Jargon Busters. So basically, we're going to see how well you guys know some of these kind of industry terms. How are you feeling about this? Are we feeling confident?
A bit nervous.
Not confident, but I'm looking forward to it.
I've got Claude lined up, ready to help me answer these questions.
So I've got a list, this jargon buster list, and in every episode we are gonna, you guys are gonna give it a go to see if you know what it means. So the first one is the term unicorn. Does anyone have any clue?
I think I know this.
Oh,
yeah. It's a horse with a with a horn and rainbows coming out of its bum, right?
Smashed it.
I know what unicorn is.
I think so.
My daughter loves them.
Yeah,
I love them too, to be fair.
I was actually my daughter's water bottle this morning when I was getting it ready to put in her bag for nursery has unicorns and rainbows over it. So maybe it's best to ask her.
Every new toy my daughter gets, I say, what are you going to call it? And it's Unicorn Sparkle. Every single toy.
Yeah,
Sparkle Smash.
Yeah.
So apart from the horse with the horn, what do we think?
Yeah, a unicorn isn't it a sort of shorthand way of describing a high value company, like a sort of these sort of companies that come out of nowhere. OpenAI is a unicorn, I guess, because it sort of came out of nowhere. Now it's worth billions. That's the way I understand it.
A firm might employ like 30 staff that sort of was launched like 2 years ago, and it's suddenly worth like $1 billion.
Yeah, you're on the right.
An incredible investment opportunity. Yeah,
exactly.
I think I'm kind of in the same boat. It's like because it's almost like you say, it's that 1 in a million kind of company which has done well, And that kind of is the unicorn, because it's special, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, well, basically, I mean, it's specific. So it's a private startup company, but valued over $1 billion.
Right.
Mm.
Well, I got the
Yeah.
Quite
$1 billion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew
Private
something
startup.
along these lines.
I didn't realize it was there was such a specific explanation for
Yeah.
it, but yeah.
I like the idea of
I
this
think we're on the right track.
Yeah, I like the idea of this like super sweet term for, you know, this big finance term. But yeah, you did pretty well there. But as I say, plenty more chances with this, because we're going to do this in the coming weeks. So probably start revising. But for now, let's talk about next week. So a little preview of what we're going to be talking about next time. And this is a big statement. So the episode is titled, "I'm going to replace my design team with AI unless you tell me not to." Are we going to replace you with a robot?
Well, I think it really, I mean, design is so broad. You know, I'm assuming we're talking in the context of technology, probably website and app design, because that's our kind of bread and butter. But yeah, I think the word design is quite broad. You know, design's been around for thousands of years. The pyramids were designed. The chair that you're sat on is designed. Websites are designed, and I think ultimately, you know, I think there are aspects of, definitely, and we've already been talking about them, you know, web design and app design, which are going to be sped up using AI. I think the methodology behind what makes good design, how you get there, remains the same from all the things I was talking about. What would actually be quite interesting is just throwing that back to Pat and Paul, what do you think design is? You know, what do you think, what is the meaning of design as a word? What is design? And I think that's perhaps something to think about before the next call as well, because I think understanding the meaning of that word and what it is, I think will help us answer that on the next one.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even
Become
think
quite
about the chair.
philosophical,
You've got some homework there, guys.
Yeah.
Um,
You know what I'm doing this weekend?
Yeah. Looking forward to kind of getting stuck into that a little bit more next week. But for now, that's episode 1 done.
Yeah. Exciting.
Great.
Very excited. We've started.
Yeah,
So,
Ready
yeah.
for the big time.
Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week.
Before we go, it's time for a quick shameless plug. This episode was brought to you by Indulge, a digital agency built on thinking for the global financial services sector. If you're looking for an agency that can specialize in UX and design, production, and marketing, then look no further. To find out more, visit indulge.digital. Thanks for listening.